Hello and welcome to Shooting the Shit.
Did it? Well done. Well done.
I was just saying, I really hate doing the hello, and then there we go. So today we are talking about Karens, and we've got obviously Marisha and Joe with me. Rachel is poorly, so she jibbed a couple of hours ago. But yeah, we're going to talk about Karens. I love this topic. I think about it a lot to myself every time I see something about a Karen. I think, how do I feel about Karens? And I'm never really sure. So full disclosure, my mother was called Karen. And I'm not sure she would have appreciated the meme if she'd have known what a meme was. But we'll never know. So if you are a Karen and you're watching this, I'd like some comments from the Karens just to let us know, do you find it offensive or do you fucking love it and live up to the stereotype? So, first of all, I think we better discuss what the hell is a Karen. So, Marisha, what's a Karen?
Oh my God!
And how do we solve it?
That's like no. That's towards the end of the conversation. Do I have to fix it all? But a Karen to me, let's go with that. Not a generalistic kind of Karen term, but a Karen is a demanding woman with a short it's more to do with the look as well as the attitude. It's not just just the words. So Karen is somebody that's demanding and wants to talk to the manager all the time. I've met loads of them. I used to work at Macro, so you can imagine, right? They were always bringing a microwave or a Karcher pressure washer back. That's it. That's what I remember. But that's a Karen to me. Somebody that's an angry woman, basically.
Yeah, Joe.
Well, isn't it also? I mean, I associate the Karen thing with Americans, particularly, and it's usually overlaid with a heavy dose of privilege and, well, white privilege and, casual racism. Is there such thing? It's just racism. Let's just call it that, racism. So sort of white, privileged, racist women in America. Not all of them, just the ones who are like Karen. Sorry, I'm digging myself a hole.
What was it? I like Karen.
It's really interesting though that that you brought up the American thing, because I would associate a Karen also with America, and in this climate, I think Karens have become very much mainstream meme because of or amplified during Black Lives Matter, when people were starting to become more aware of systemic and underlying racism and kind of, like you say, casual racism, like people who aren't all out, kill the blacks, but people who just are kind of misinformed or prejudiced or a bit ignorant. So I would say that is casual racism. And I think the Karen meme fits into that as well. Like it is always a woman. There is a male version, which is a Ken, but it is always a woman who is always flexing her privilege in order to kind of improve her situation, like speak to the manager. Or there's a couple of really famous examples in America of a woman calling the police on a little 8-year-old girl for selling lemonade without a permit on the streets of America, like on the sidewalk. Or like there was that man jogging in the park, wasn't there? And a woman called the police on him because he was daring to jog and be black at the same time, and how absolutely atrocious. So it is a kind of shorthand for a type of woman. Do we feel that it's harmless, or do you take umbrage with it?
Go on, Joe. Look at Joe's face.
Well, to be honest, unlike Hannah, who apparently lies awake thinking about this, hadn't given it much thought until it was today's topic. Genuinely, I was just like, I'd seen it and I hadn't really given it much thought. But then I did give it some thought. I was like, hang on a minute, what is the equivalent male? So yeah, the Ken thing's not really caught on, has it? It was just one. I think it was one particular incident. If there's a Karen paired with a white male who's exhibiting similar behavior, then, you know, they've coined the term Ken, but as a whole, it's not. And it just started to make me think of what are the other type, what's the equivalent? And I could think of lots of other labels that we give women that are derogatory versus men. So I meant to write them down, so now they're all going to come out, have popped out my head. But one being like, there's the typical soccer mom, isn't there? Yeah, that's the stereotypical kind of, you know who you mean by that. And then there's, you know, the housewives of whoever they are, that type of woman. I was thinking, what is the male equivalent to all of these? And other than Florida Man, which is very specific to, do you know about Florida Man?
No, I've never heard of Florida Man. What's he got, like, votes Trump and wears slacks and rides an alligator? I don't know.
No, it's more like he's the type of guy, he comes from, it's always when there's some crazy news story, you know, guy wrestles an alligator and, you know, while riding a motorcycle, it's like, Florida Man. It's more of a stereotype type, like a crazy thing that happens in the news. It's usually in Florida and it gets coined Florida Man. But anyway, that was the only sort of one I could think of, you know, do you know what I mean? It's like, and then it's like, why is it women that are getting, I mean, there's really, really bad, racist, white privileged males out there. Why are we picking on the women?
Well, there's gammons, isn't there? So a gammon is the term is coined because of the back of a man, like this type of man's neck often looks like a gammon. So they're usually British, overweight, voted Brexit, love the Tories, not casually racist, formally racist. Very a committed racist, you know, drinks like fucking John Smiths and, like, do you know the chap that owns Weatherspoons? He's a gammon. He would be a gammon. And my God, they hate it. But like Karen is funny, but gammon is apparently not. But yeah, you're right. We do categorize women in really derogatory terms. In fact, the Oxford Dictionary or Collins Dictionary or something has only just removed the word bitch as a synonym for a woman in their, like, thesaurus, which is just fucking ridiculous. But anyway, Rish, what do you think? Do you reckon does it offend you as a woman, Karen? Do you think it's just yet another derogatory term? Like it?
Yeah, it's for me, it's another term. It's almost like this year, it's almost like taken on a life of its own as a Karen, because I think, you know, that in my brain, those types of people have always existed. You know, you see them and you kind of experience them, but they didn't have a group name, you know, as a, you know, as a collective. So yeah, I think to be a Karen, you know, now as it's kind of a term on its own, I think, you know, instantly, you know, conjures up, you know, certain things. I think there are other male equivalents as well. I think there's, you know, the likes of Chad, but I think it's, again, taps into the Americanisms, like a Chad, for example, you know, you know, exactly. Yeah. Faces are like, yeah, okay, I know what a Chad is. Yeah. So I think they're there, but less so. And I think, you know, maybe, you know, Karen has been adopted a bit more over here. And I really see that as actually just an unpleasant person, really. And I think when I kind of, you know, think about that as a term, that's what it conjures up for me. It's not just about racism, things like that. It's about privilege and it's about attitude more than anything else, and that kind of thing. But I think it's to be offended by, I don't know, you know, because I'm not someone called Karen, and I would like to think that I don't act like a Karen. However, you know, is it that, you know, maybe it's just people just standing up for, you know, what's the difference? Someone standing up for, or, you know, complaining because of X, you know, when they're well within their rights to, or is it something else? You know, I think it's that. Does that make sense? You know,
yeah, 100%. Like my friend voice messaged me in a pickle a few months ago, saying she'd complained about something. She'd asked to speak to a manager, and she complained about something, and she felt really bad because she thought she would be labelled a Karen. And she was like, and then, oh my God, like, am I a Karen? Blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, babe, you're fully a Karen, but not because of this. Like, is it that bad to like complain about something that's not right? Where does the line like be drawn? Are we being like vilified for exercising our rights to complain and say what we want and stand up for ourselves? Is that the case?
That's the thing. That I think that's where I kind of see it, you know, because I've done it myself, you know, like my Karen moment. I felt it. I was living it. You know, I didn't give a fuck, right? Because I drove miles to go and pick something up from like a home base, and they only had them in one store, this stock, and the guys were like, "Oh yeah, it says you've got them in stock online, but we can't get at them because they're on a shelf and we're doing a stock take." I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. Go and find a manager and get them down from there right now. Like, but you know, and I don't mind. But yeah, I think it's like, yeah, again, the issue for me is that collective, you know, you can't complain about anything anymore, even if it's actually wrong, or you know, like it's like my nan would be a Karen because she would send every meal back because it was cold. You know what I mean? Like she would, she'd be there.
Rightly so. Why the fuck are we eating cold food?
Exactly. So yeah.
Do you think it's more about how you do it?
Maybe so. Complain.
Like with the attitude that we can't. Okay. I've worked really hard on this to get better at being able to complain, because I'm that person who will go politely eat my cold meal. I'm getting better at it, and I'm so flipping apologetic as well. While I'm like, so yeah, where was I going? Yeah, so maybe it's in the way that the complaint is seen. I don't know. Is there that kind of like bolshiness that seems to come from a place of privilege? Like, I am better than you, and I'm going to complain. So rather than speaking equals to equals, like you should do to human beings, maybe it's that sense of the privilege that comes, that talking down to people, you know, maybe patronizing and making it clear, you know, whether it's just, you know, so maybe it's the way that you do it.
I think
so, Karen.
Go on, Rach.
I was going to say it kind of taps into, you know, like how people treat serving staff or waiting staff, for example. You know, that you know, instantly for me, you know, how people treat other people says a lot, doesn't it? Really, and maybe that, you know, like you say, taps straight into that, because you know that people serving you are still equals. They're doing a job. Do you know what I mean? Just because they happen to be doing that job doesn't mean that, you know, they are any I am any better or they're any worse, you know. So yeah, maybe that's why we kind of struggle with it a bit, because we're not arseholes about things, or maybe not all the time.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, there is a bit of a dangerous undercurrent, I suppose, and this is twofold. Like, firstly, by labeling them as Karens and kind of mocking them, filming, like we've all seen these videos of women screaming in a public place, having a public freak out because their milkshake isn't cold enough, or there's a child making too much noise, or there's a black person doing something they shouldn't be in a place they shouldn't be, like running in a public place or whatever. Well, we've all seen these videos, and by mocking them and kind of lumping them together with women who complain or women who are bullshit, are we not making it okay to be that vile a human being, and making it not okay for a woman to stand up for themselves simultaneously by taking two facets of people and saying bloody women, lumping them together? Do you feel me, fam? God, I said that.
I'd never thought about it like that. I can see why.
Down with the kids. Oh.
But I think by lumping it all together, it's making it into that women's problem and let's mock. So it is undermining not undermining, it's making it less serious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose in some ways it's because you're making a joke out of it. Let's make a joke because she's absolutely losing her shit. But actually why she is quite horrible, and that makes her a nasty person, and it makes her racist, and it makes her just an unpleasant person. But by mocking it, is it almost like you're not doing anything about it then, because it's just there for your entertainment? So it's almost enabling it. It's just haha.
Yeah, exactly. Haha, look what a racist dick, on with our lives, like bloody white women. And then also, if we think about the anti-vax, so Karens are typically anti-vax, which is, I mean, I don't know how you two feel about this, but I would hope you're kind of with me in thinking that it is just an incredibly dangerous stance and mindset to be anti-vax. But feel free to say if you're not, and I'll roundly mock you. If you are anti-vax. So, but again, to me, can I just establish before I go on, are either of you anti-vax?
No.
Okay.
We do have an actual Karen watching. Sorry.
Hi, Karen. So to me, an anti-vax is an intensely dangerous position to be in, and it is it's kind of being propelled by predominantly women who have the power to obviously influence what their children are and aren't being vaccinated against. And if you mock this, you're not shutting it down. You're kind of allowing it to perpetuate. You're allowing people who believe in anti-vax to form like an allegiance, like against the people, the rest of the world that are mocking them. Do you know, it kind of like underpins their stance in a way. If you force people into a corner, then they can kind of join together and become more vocal and powerful and everything. So to me, again, they're like a dangerous element of just labeling these crackers people as Karens because they're women, because they're reactionary idiots, is again dangerous, because we're allowing this anti-vax bullshit to continue to grow, because we just go, oh man, they're crazy, like let's just leave the Karens to it because they're anti-vax, they're bonkers. And the same with anti-mask. And if we don't take it in hand, because we're mocking them, then it allows very dangerous ways of thinking to grow and spread like a virus. What do you think?
I agree. I think, there's the element of grouping it in with other stuff, I guess that I didn't really appreciate, before today's conversation, really, because, I don't, I would look at an American Karen differently, I guess, as I would as a British Karen. Can you believe we've been saying that, and like people even know what I'm talking about? But I kind of do agree, and I think there is an undercurrent, with all of this kind of stuff. And I was looking at something earlier, and it kind of leads into a little bit what Joe said as well, in terms of that female naming thing. So when I was younger, we were younger, let's group us all together. There's a Tracer and a Sharon. You know what I mean? Again, there are, as soon as you say that name, there is a conjuring up of the person that is, and actually, would the undercurrent there be that they are, and I'm not agreeing with any of it, but is it a case of, they are, had kids when they were 14, or enough for a council estate, and
working class,
all of that kind of stuff that comes with the name. So actually, there is an undercurrent with these kind of things, and the same in the male space as well. Because if you look at a Chad or a Gammon or whatever words are out there to group these together, actually there's some very nasty kind of behaviors within that. So if you look at a Kyle, there's an instant kind of recognition of some beefy, American football guy that actually is quite aggressive, but it's okay because it's Kyle, and the kind of attitude of a Karen, you know, all of a sudden takes on its own kind of life, and it's not just about ignorance anymore. It's bigger than that, and it's a bit more scary than that, I guess. So yeah.
But even with a Chad and a Kyle and a Gammon and stuff, there is still a female equivalent. A Chad, the female equivalent is a Becky. I can't remember what it is for a Kyle. It's all like incel language, isn't it? And again, I'm struggling to think as we talk of a solely male equivalent that is, you know, akin to Karen insofar as it stands on its own.
Maybe those women are alone. They're alone in life, and their male counterparts just hide behind them, thinking, "Oh, fucking hell, she goes again."
Do we think then it's horribly misogynistic, or is it justified that there is this group of women out there that are like this?
Well, because I was struggling to think of male equivalents. I've never heard of Kyle. I had heard Chad. I'm not sure I'd heard Gammon either, but that one has given me a little chuckle, must say. But I'm going to keep the eye on the back of my husband's neck, because you don't want that neck, do you? Right. I forgot what the question was. Sorry. Is it misogynistic?
Yeah, do you think it's misogynistic?
Well, I suppose when we group together when we put a label on any group of women and point fun at them, you could argue it could be. I don't know. It's a tricky one, I think. Why do we have to put labels on everything? That's the other thing. I do feel, so Karen Thistleton, who's watching, I'm sure you're not a Karen, and your team says you're not. But it's crap as well, isn't it? Get your name hijacked. At least Gammon, you can still order a Gammon steak and feel all right about it.
You can feel like the back of your neck sunburn and be all right.
So I didn't answer it. I'm not sure.
Oh, don't come back to me for the answers. I don't know.
You're really wrong, aren't you? There's only three of us. Hannah asked the question.
No, she can answer it though this time. Come on, what do you reckon, Hannah?
Yeah, I think it's probably quite misogynistic, because I have no doubt that there are men out there that are equally privileged, and I suppose, do you know, like I don't know if there's a collective noun for them, but do you know, like if I said like coloured chinos, and you know they're all a bit, would you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from coloured chinos, they're going to be a bit raw, and they probably do like boating or fencing, and they all have girlfriends called things like Ella and stuff. And like, do you know what I mean?
Made in Chelsea.
Huh?
Like the Made in Chelsea lot.
Yeah, exactly. So they're a bit, you know, they're kind of like exercising the privilege, but it's all a bit, oh, lads, you know, lads. So yeah, I think it is really misogynistic, actually. Like you say, Joe, to group a bunch of women together and label them in a derogatory way is probably misogynistic, because you're kind of homogenizing the attributes of women from an entire swathe of society, which is white middle class, or even white working class, just white women. You're just homogenizing white women and saying, you know what, you all use privilege to your own advantage. If you defend yourself, if you complain about something, even if you choose not to vaccinate your children, you're a fucking idiot. But I suppose that is your prerogative. But then it's really dangerous and anyone else. And the same with like wearing a mask. Like if you choose not to wear a mask, you're putting other people at risk. So I've kind of like talked myself out my own point there. Well, it's your prerogative to be a dick if you want to be a dick, but it's not, is it, if it puts other people at risk? So maybe we do need to mock these women.
I don't know. I think, you know, like Karen that's listening has kind of said, I think it's, the issue is that life is hard enough, yeah, without having to get through that kind of barrier of your own name before you say anything else. Do you know what I mean? That's just fucking horrendous. As if it's not, you know, hard enough to kind of be heard. you know, in the environment we're in, basically, in any way, shape or form. You kind of have to deal with that first. And it's a little bit like when we were talking about you know, politics and women in power and things like that. You know, they're instantly judged by what they're wearing, for example. First, you open a newspaper, there's something about a kitten heel before there's something about their actual, you know, politics, what they stand for, what they believe in. You know, so it's almost like we have to have that conversation first before we even get to anything else. And for me, that's the struggle. Do you know what I mean? Because people do, you know, believe this stuff as well. You know,
Yeah.
like if someone said, I think we're all intelligent enough to kind of, you know, take Karens as a, you know, that whole term, and take it with a pinch of salt, really. You know, and actually see people for who they are and how they are, and, you know, actually treat people like individuals. But people don't. You know, all of a sudden, you know, the Karens have got this like kind of you know, blanket wash, if you like, of how they all behave in a certain way, and that's crap. You know, that we get lumped together in that. So yeah.
I suppose if we take out the anti-vax and the anti-mask, which not all Karens will be anti-vax and anti-mask, and not all anti-vax and anti-mask people will be Karens. Some might be male. But when we take that out of it, because that is a real dick move, and we just kind of, you know, ignore that bit, at the heart of it, you've got a woman that is trying to kind of use their position of power and privilege to better their own position, you know, to better their own situation, where their situation is they've ordered a dinner and it's shit because it's cold, or because they've driven all the way to home base and some lazy twat won't go and get it off the shelf, you know, whatever it is, or they want to improve their overall position in life, they want to make their neighborhood safer or whatever. Like, at the heart of it, there is a woman trying to make their situation better, and there's kind of two sides to it. There's the fact that yes, they have white privilege, but also they are subjugated because they are female. Like, there's kind of two ways here of being discriminated against, and they're circumnavigating one because they're not a person of color and they're white, and so they have all the privilege that goes with that, but they have all the discrimination and the subjugation that goes with being a woman. So in a way, it's kind of a two-prong, isn't it? It's maybe born out of frustration of being subjugated and downtrodden for being female, and so they're using the only privilege that they have, which is their white privilege, whether they know it or not. Discuss. Interesting. I think it's yeah, I think for me, now you've said that, there's very much that kind of, would you have that same attitude with me if I was a man? Take out the white, clearly, because, you know, I'm not just tanned. This stays, you know. But it's, you know, that's it. You know, and that's my kind of flick switch, you know, for that attitude. So, you know, that the home base incident was that. You know, would you have said that to me if I was a bloke that had come with a family, or that, you know, said, oh, I'll just get them down, or whatever, had whatever attitude? But would you have said that to me in that same way, shape or form? I don't know. And I don't believe, you know, that maybe it would have gone that way. Maybe there would have been a different conversation. Do you know what I mean? So that's my trigger. You know, that it's the female thing is the issue for me more than anything else. And to flip it as well, to take your example out of it, I shouldn't have used an example because you weren't being a Karen, but to take that out of it, and you think about these women typically, so if we're just, you know, leaning into the stereotype, they are wielding their power over people who in the pecking order of things are below them. So they are in a lower paid job, they're a person of colour, they're a child, you know, they are below them in the societal pecking order. And is it just a case of shouting down, you know, punching down, because you can't punch up? You know, maybe it's a case of that as well, that it's nothing to do with them expressing their white privilege. well, their class privilege, as it probably is in Britain, and white privilege. But it's not them expressing that. It's just that it so happens that the people that they are, railing against are lower than them on the pecking order and are naturally going to be in a lower social class, a person of colour because of systemic racism, a trans person or a child or, someone that's below them.
So it's a bit like how bullies then pick off the weaker link in their mind, and they've probably been bullied themselves. That's why they're doing it. That's the kind of, when you were talking, that's what it was making me think of.
Yeah, that's
because Karen, who is watching, says, she does find it sexist because there's no equivalent term for grumpy middle-aged men. And I wondered if it's just because we just allow that behaviour from men, so we don't have to lump it together. It's just if a man turns up at home base and he gets angry and insists on, we're just like, oh, it's just there's no story there. Yeah. He's just being. He's just
male. Yeah,
he's just his privilege in every single one of those tick boxes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we all have to do what he says because he's a man.
Yeah, so it's not. Or on the other side, I was also thinking that kind of behaviour that goes viral, it seemed to be irrational. Is it that, again, with a man, you're just like, oh, it's just him being a bit aggro. It's not actually a story. It's not, because men have, are seeing they can exert their power and say what they want, and that isn't the story. That's just what they should do, whereas women should not be doing that.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, for definite. And it is just like grumpy middle-aged men, like Karen says. You just go, what a grumpy man. Ooh, always so masculine, or always, microaggressive or whatever. But for a woman, it's no, we're gonna lump her in with racists and morons and people who can't control their own temper. And I think,
isn't it, that there is that that micro aggression, if you like, just as a whole, i.e. as a female, you're not strong enough to do anything else other than shout louder. Do you know what I mean? Like as you're talking, then that's it, and because you can't do anything else, because you can't. If you were to punch me in the face, it might not hurt. There's that kind of attitude. So therefore, what else are you going to do? Go on, shout loud, and we'll find it funner. It's that, isn't it? So yeah, it's interesting.
And it's almost declawing the kind of females like anger and frustration by laughing about it and sticking it on the internet. You just say, what impotent rage we're witnessing here. And I have seen it similarly for men, where men have kind of ranted and raved and screamed and shouted in public, but it tends to be like I was going to say a joke man, like a pretend man, but it tends to be like an older man who doesn't have any power. So they're either old, or they're very overweight, or they're both, or they're uneducated. It's never a kind of like a suited and booted 38-year-old, high-flying, white, good-looking chap. It's always, they're fat, they're old, they're thick, they're poor. And let's laugh at them for losing their shit in public. I just read something earlier that Donald Trump is the ultimate Karen because he uses his privilege. He wields his privilege to get what he wants, and he is anti-mask, isn't he?
Yeah. Actually, and I was actually thinking earlier, is it not a male equivalent? Because actually, they're also lumped in with Karens as well. Like, actually, it's perfectly acceptable to call a male a Karen and for you to still understand what that means. So, yeah. I don't know. Is it that exists?
And what you just described in that kind of behaviour, Hannah, did you see the guy? It trended here in the UK because the guy looked a bit like Keith Lemon. There was a guy during the. Did you not see it? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. There's an American chap who, midway through some kind of press conference or something to do with the election, just came in and he's like wife beater top, his slightly mullet hair, and just shouted. Everyone just looked at him. He finished what he was doing, then just walked off. But that, you know, when you were saying, I was like, okay, that's kind of, you know, and yes, he was white, yes, a little bit chubby, maybe. So yeah, but there's no you could say it's a bit of Karen, you know, if you're going to use that term, but
again, like with the exception of, although no, because Donald Trump is very mockable. He is, you know, old and fat and orange. Yeah, like if we think about like the pecking order of men, there is a pecking order of men and there's a pecking order of women, and at some point the lower men cross with the alpha women, you know, the beta men cross with the alpha women, and maybe somewhere in the middle there's the Karens.
A harmonious level of Karen.
Yeah. like they're not the alpha men, the beta men, the men that are fat, old, poor, stupid, ugly, whatever, that aren't the, you know, the big I ams.
It's weird, isn't it? I think it's in that, you know, kind of space as well. You know, I joked earlier and said, you know, is it that there's, you know, also not as much of an equivalent because the male, you know, if you see a Karen and with a male, they tend to be actually like, oh God, here she goes again. But, you know, I'm thinking about like the real life people, you know, around that I know and stuff like that. And I don't know many people that I would term as a Karen. You know, there's maybe one or two. And that is born from ignorance really more than anything, but also an attitude of I'm better than you. And you know, it's and yeah, the husbands in those scenarios are very, very downtrodden almost. And yeah, so maybe there is that kind of, you know, meeting of levels in some way to kind of balance it all out. It's all very strange, isn't it? You know, can you imagine that all of a sudden, you know, this name just takes off for a group of X, you know, and straight away, and you know, again, is that because of how news is that actually newsworthy that like it's become a name? It's crazy, isn't it, that we're actually even having this discussion that, you know, this now exists.
Yeah. And why the name Karen? Does anyone know like the origins of it?
Of Karen? No, I don't know.
I don't know. Karen's saying she knows one, but she's called Nancy. I love that.
I can't remember the name of the person that I know. She lives a few doors away, so I don't know.
You made a fucking name.
I'm at that point in the pandemic where I feel like I don't know anyone and I haven't seen any behaviour except for my own and my cat's and my husband's. So I'm like, do I know any Karens? I don't know. I only see what's on the internet these days. That's all that's real.
This is a good point. We are only seeing what's on the internet. I don't think I've ever seen Karen behaviour in real life, IRL, as Rachel would say, unless I'm the one carrying it out.
Maybe it's you. That's why. If you don't know a Karen, it's you.
Maybe it is me.
Actual Karen has made a very good point. They were all of a certain age as the name went out of favour. So maybe it's because of the age of the name. Like it's, you know, if we're talking, you know, we say it's middle-aged women, then that was a popular name for that demographic.
Yeah.
No, I know who ground zero sort of, you know, patient zero Karen was.
Patient zero Karen. I know a Karen though, and she's young, and I always thought it was, you know, an unusual name for her. She's, well, I say she's young. She's my age. No, I think she's older than me. She is, you know, she's not a woman of a certain age, as Karen says. Oh, Liz is here. So, Liz, hi, Liz. You're a Karen, lovey. So Liz is the one, no, she's not really. Liz is the one I was saying who complained and then sent me a message saying, oh shit, have I turned into a Karen? Like, no, of course you're not a Karen just because you complain. But I'd be interested to hear Liz's take if she gets around to typing something. So yeah, maybe it is women of a certain age, but then why is it Karen? Why is it not Sue or, you know, can't think of any other lady's name.
Any other female name?
As Karen says, popular from the 1970s. I have to check. You can check the records of what the number one name was in 1970.
Jill, that's another 70s name, isn't it?
Yes. There you are. maybe in like a few years' time, we're going to get the Hannahs. Fucking hell. Raving feminists, all of them. That's it. You know what I mean? That's
absolute gobshites. I would say I am probably a bit of a Karen, and anyone who's been to a restaurant with me would probably agree that I can be a bit of a Karen, because I think I'm better than everyone else.
Yeah, I do. I feel for the real life Karens, though. I must admit, you know, I never really thought about it because I'm not a meme. Maybe that's the issue. So yeah, it can't be pleasant, I guess.
Because sometimes it's just like trending on Twitter, isn't it? Like, what is morning, Karen? And sometimes I don't know if someone started that to be nice. People were just saying good morning to Karens, like real people who were called Karen.
I
as if
doubt
trying to claim it back.
No, I doubt it. I read it.
When I clicked on it, there was a lot of people called just like nice, happy things.
Yeah, well, was it Domino's or something got in trouble for giving away pizzas to nice Karens, and they got in loads of trouble for it as a, you know, like a marketing campaign. They had to apologise. But I read
apologise for everything, Hannah. We have to apologise for everything.
Yeah, well, everything. Yeah, absolutely. So to summarize then, because we are running out of time, as Rachel would say, just quickly as well, I read something somewhere where it was on a Reddit and it was like an am I the arsehole thing where this woman was saying her sister really loved the name Karen and was going to give it to her baby, and this woman was saying like, you can't call it Karen, you can't call it Karen, and all her family were calling her an arsehole for like telling her sister what she could and couldn't call this baby. But yeah, she didn't call it Karen in the end because of this meme, which I think is, you know, fairly ridiculous, because I hope in a few years this meme is dead. So do we think then, just to summarize, that Karen's is a particularly misogynistic term? Do we think it's appropriate? What do you think? Final thoughts, Marisha?
Oh no, not my final thoughts. No. No, I think you know, I'm just going to be honest about how I feel about it. I guess I think I kind of just, you know, do take it with a pinch of salt. You know, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Some people are going to find it offensive, some people are not, some people will just roll with it. It's, you know, it's it's an interesting thing, but I just hope it's one of those memes that literally, you know, we don't remember it in, you know, 5 years time. It's just done and dusted. We've moved on to Hannah's by then, so we'll see.
Yeah. Karen, who is the young Karen I was talking about, says she never heard a name so many times in 1 minute. When you know, when you say something lots and it starts to sound weird, it has kind of lost all meaning now as a word, Karen.
Karen.
Go on, Joe. Give us your final thoughts.
I think anything perhaps that lumps women together and just gives them an overall name just to shame and be derogatory is misogynistic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree. So that's it for today. Next week, we're talking about something else. I do know what it is, but I can't remember. It might be the trans debate, possibly. I don't know. It's something like that. It's something good. So yeah, join us next week when we'll know what we're talking about, as always. And hopefully Rachel will be back for more Tales from the Garage.
Oh, but we didn't get it in though, quickly, did we?
Oh, Rachel used to work at a garage, and one of their customers was called Karen.
And she's also part of a certain group as well.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't believe in vaccinating her pets. Tales from the Garage. We need a theme tune for it.
We do actually, don't we? Tales from
the Garage. Joe, do you have any idea what we're talking about? You look really cool. Rachel used to work at a garage, and on pretty much every session she manages to shoehorn in some sort of tale from when she worked at the garage, or she mentions she's a seroptimist. So just in case anyone missed it, Rachel's a seroptimist, and I think she does know some Karens.
And there are some other names as well. Very quickly, I was just looking. There's Hermit Patty. So these are very American. Barbecue Becky. You know, so there's all sorts. Just take a name and stick something in front of it. You know, job done.
Yeah, it's all really derogatory, isn't it? You wouldn't get like a Permit Pete and a Barbecue Bill. It's all really fucking derogatory. I think I'm coming down on the side of not liking it.
You're Bob the Builder.
That's not derogatory.
No, he's fairly innocuous. If anything, he's got a very strong work ethic.
He has quite a lot of money as well, because we always need builders, so we're doing all right.
Yeah, and he doesn't pay his staff anything because they're all mechanical, aren't they? So there we go. Right, that's it from us. Thank you very much. Join us next week when we're doing something equally offensive that we'll have planned. Bye.
Bye.